Some debts don't stay buried. They claw their way back through time. New York City, 1978. Rain-slicked streets glimmered under neon lights, and the scent of wet asphalt mingled with the faint aroma of street food. In a dimly lit office above a crumbling tenement, accountant Thomas Carver sifted through decades-old ledgers, his spectacles sliding down his nose. NNHE had been tasked with auditing the archives of Marlowe Sons, a family-owned shipping company rumored to have ties with the city's underworld. Most records were mundane: bills, invoices, payroll, but one ledger caught his eye. In the margin, scrawled in a shaky hand, was a single name: Eleanor Hartley. Thomas frowned. Eleanor was a name he recognized from whispered stories. The young daughter of a once powerful shipping magnate vanished under mysterious circumstances 20 years ago. The ledger entry was cryptic, an amount noted beside her name with the annotation, "Settle before the winter ends." And a chill ran down his spine. Why would her name appear here, decades later, in the handwriting of the current CFO? And more importantly, why did the note feel like a warning rather than a record? As Thomas leaned closer, trying to decipher the smudged ink, the office door creaked. He turned, heart racing. The hallway was empty, just the faint hum of the building's heater, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. NHE picked up the ledger and flipped through the pages. Each entry for Eleanor Hartley was marked with unusual consistency: payments made, debts recorded, names crossed out. Something about it didn't add up. And outside, the city moved on, unaware that Thomas Carver had stumbled upon a secret that had been buried for decades. A secret that could destroy families, ruin lives, and awaken a criminal network thought long gone. And a shadow detached itself from the alley below, watching the office window. A man in a rain-soaked trench coat whispered to no one in particular, "She's found it. Now everything begins." Some debts linger across generations, and collecting them can be deadly. Thomas Carver sat at his desk, staring at the ledger with unease. Eleanor Hartley's name seemed to pulse on the page, a ghost of unfinished business. The annotation, "Settle before the winter ends," echoed ominously in his mind. Winter had only just begun, and he could feel a storm coming. NNHE picked up the phone, debating whether to call anyone. Who could he trust? The current CFO? Impossible. Marlowe Sons' office was full of old money, old secrets, and people who looked the same as the photographs he had seen of Eleanor's father. Sharp eyes, tight lips, and hands capable of both charm and cruelty. Before he could decide, a soft knock came at the office door. Thomas froze. "Who is it?" he called. No answer. He approached cautiously. Outside, the hallway was empty, but on the ground lay a small envelope, soaked from the rain, tracked in by someone unknown. NNHE picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single note: "NN, some debts are never forgiven. Find her before it's too late." Thomas's stomach nodded. This wasn't just about accounting errors or missing funds. Someone still alive, still dangerous, was hunting Eleanor Hartley's legacy. NNTHE office lights flickered as he rifled through the ledger again. Among the financial entries were cryptic references: shipments listed as cleared, dispatched, or held for Eleanor Hartley. Oddly, many were followed by initials, some familiar, some completely unknown. One in particular, R. Marlowe, appeared repeatedly. Thomas had read the name in old city newspapers, tied to gang disputes, mysterious disappearances, and rumors of criminal dealings. "N.R. Marlowe," he whispered. "So it's not just money, it's everything." NTHAT night. Thomas returned home, careful to lock every door. Yet the sense of being watched followed him. A shadow moved past the window, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. On his doorstep was a package, heavy, wrapped in brown paper. Inside, another ledger, older, even more fragile than the one in his office. On its cover, a single word was etched. Hartley. Thomas's hand shook as he opened it. The pages contained names, dates, and locations, seemingly ordinary at first, but interspersed were handwritten notes. "Settled with blood. Not forgiven. She must pay." NNHE realized the truth. Eleanor Hartley's disappearance had never been solved. Someone had been tracking her, protecting the debt, and now, decades later, the ledger had resurfaced. In the shadows outside, a figure stepped into the street lamp's glow, a man in a long coat, eyes hidden beneath the brim of a hat. He whispered into a phone NN ledger found. Initiate the hunt. Some pasts never stay buried. They haunt the present in shadows and whispers. Thomas Carver couldn't sleep. The fragile ledger lay on his kitchen table, illuminated by a single lamp. Outside, the winter wind rattled the windows, carrying the distant sounds of New York streets, sirens, footsteps, the faint hum of a subway train. But Thomas's mind was elsewhere. Every entry in the ledger, every annotation, carried a weight far beyond simple bookkeeping. NNHE traced a finger over Eleanor Hartley's name. The payments, the notes about debts, the references to mysterious initials, it all suggested something more than money. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide the truth, yet decades later, it had resurfaced in his hands. And a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Thomas stiffened. The apartment door was locked, and the knock continued, slow, deliberate. He crept to the door, peering through the peephole. The hallway was empty. A chill ran down his spine, and NHE opened the door carefully. On the floor lay a photograph, yellowed, edges frayed, depicting Eleanor as a young woman, standing on the steps of Marlowe Sons, smiling faintly at the camera. On the back, in careful handwriting NN, "Find her before they do." Thomas felt a shiver of dread. The they mentioned in the note could only be the same people who had been guarding the debt for decades. Shadowy figures willing to kill to protect a secret. NNTHE. Next day, Thomas returned to the office. He carefully cross-referenced the old ledger with city records, newspaper clippings, and Marlowe Sons archived files. Patterns emerged. Certain shipments listed in the ledger coincided with reports of disappearances, mysterious deaths, and unclaimed insurance payouts. "Someone covered this up for years," he murmured, running his hands through his hair. "And now, it's up to me to uncover it." NNTHAT night. He found a new lead, a distant cousin of Eleanor Hartley living quietly in Queens. Her name was Margaret, and she had information about Eleanor's disappearance. Information that could explain why the ledger existed and why it had been buried for so long. And Thomas contacted Margaret cautiously, arranging to meet her in a small diner near her home. As he waited, a figure slipped silently across the street outside, watching. The feeling of being hunted returned, more intense than ever. Margaret arrived, cautious but determined. She recognized Thomas immediately from the "Some doors hide answers, and danger waits behind every one." Thomas Carver gripped the small envelope Margaret had given him, the key rattling in his pocket as he approached the Bronx address in the biting winter cold. The building was an old brick row house, paint peeling and windows grimy, but a faint light glowed from the top floor. NNHE hesitated outside, taking in the sounds of the city. Distant traffic, the hum of neon signs, footsteps echoing down the narrow street. His gut warned him that he was not alone. The ledger, the photograph, the warnings, they had all led to this point. Cautiously, he unlocked the door with Margaret's key. The interior smelled of dust, mildew, and old paper. The narrow staircase creaked under his weight as he ascended to the top floor. At the landing, a faint light came from beneath a door, and a muffled voice spoke. "Thomas?" NHE pushed the door open. Inside was a small apartment, sparsely furnished. And there she was, Eleanor Hartley, older than he had expected, but alive. Her eyes were sharp, wary, and filled with a lifetime of unspoken pain. "And Eleanor Hartley," Thomas whispered. You're alive." And Eleanor's gaze hardened. "Of course I'm alive. I've been hiding from those who wanted me dead, from the people who have been collecting on a debt that isn't mine alone." And Thomas stepped closer, glancing at the letters Margaret had given him. "This ledger, it names you. Payments, debts, missing shipments. Why? What happened?" Eleanor motioned for him to sit. "It all began with my father. Marlowe Sons were involved in more than shipping. My father discovered their dealings, smuggling, stolen goods, even murders. He tried to expose them. They silenced him, forced my disappearance, and buried the truth. Every debt recorded in that ledger is tied to threats, bribes, and blood. And now, someone wants the ledger back. Someone who won't stop until every secret is exposed." and Thomas's stomach twisted. The ledger was not just numbers and names. It was proof, a key to unraveling decades of crime. But it also marked anyone who possessed it as a target. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Eleanor froze. "They found us!" And Thomas's heart raced. Before he could react, the door burst open. A tall figure in a long coat stood there, a pistol glinting in the dim light. "The ledger belongs to us," the man said, voice cold. "Hand it over, and no one gets hurt." Eleanor stepped in front of Thomas, eyes blazing. "You will not take this from me. Not now. Not ever." The intruder laughed, slowly advancing. "Then I'm afraid this will get messy." Eleanor and Thomas exchanged a look, understanding that the ledger had drawn them into a trap decades in the making. Outside, the city watched in silence, unaware that a confrontation decades in the making was about to explode. In the darkest times, an unexpected ally can turn the tide, but trust is never simple. Thomas Carver and Eleanor Hartley spent the next morning sifting through the scattered ledger pages, piecing together decades of financial entries, cryptic notes, and dangerous secrets. Each line revealed connections between Marlowe Sons, organized crime, and a network of debts that had forced Eleanor into hiding. "We need someone who knows this world," Thomas said, rubbing his temples. "Someone who can help us navigate the threats without getting us killed." Eleanor nodded. "There's one person. My father trusted him years ago. Retired now, lives quietly in Brooklyn. Named Sam Donovan. He knows the old network. Who's left, who's loyal, who'll kill for a ledger." Thomas frowned. "We don't know if he's trustworthy. He could be part of this too." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "I trust him more than anyone else. And if we're going to survive, we need him." An NBY evening. They found Sam Donovan's modest apartment. The man answered the door cautiously, eyes sharp despite his graying hair. "Eleanor Hartley," he said, his voice a mix of surprise and concern. "I thought you were lost." "I'm alive," Eleanor said. "But not for long if we don't act. I need your help. The ledger has resurfaced, and people are hunting me. They won't stop until every secret is destroyed, or until I am." Sam studied her, then nodded slowly. "If they've found the ledger, they're serious. This isn't a game. I've seen the families it ruined, the lives it destroyed. We need a plan, and we need to be careful." Hours they went over the ledger's entries. Sam pointed out names of men still active in the city's underground, individuals with grudges, vendettas, and the skills to enforce them. Thomas realized that every line of ink represented a life at risk, and that Eleanor's family had been protecting this secret for generations. We need to anticipate their moves," Sam said. "These people are patient. They watch, they wait, they strike when you're weakest. You two have to stay 2 steps ahead, always." As night fell, Eleanor and Thomas returned to their safe house, armed with Sam's guidance, but aware that the city outside was crawling with danger. Each shadow, each passing car could be a threat. Thomas opened the window briefly, feeling the winter air on his face. "We're not safe yet," he murmured. "They're still out there, watching, waiting, and they know we have the ledger." Suddenly, a black sedan slowed outside, headlights off. 2 men exited, moving deliberately toward the building. Eleanor pressed herself against the wall, whispering to Thomas, "They found us. It's starting again." Some enemies are patient, and when the walls close in, survival depends on every instinct. Black sedan's headlights were off, but Thomas Carver and Eleanor Hartley could see its dark outline against the dim streetlight. They ducked behind furniture, hearts racing, as Sam Donovan assessed the situation with a practiced eye. "They're scouts," Sam whispered. "They want to see where the ledger is, who's in this safe house, and how prepared we are. If they know, the next move will be lethal." Eleanor held the ledger close, flipping through pages frantically. Each name, each note was a reminder that they were dealing with a network of ruthless individuals who had spent decades guarding a secret. And Thomas clenched his fists. "We can't stay here. They'll keep coming. We need to move now." Sam nodded. "Agreed. We split up. I'll lead them away from the building, create a diversion. Eleanor, you and Thomas take the ledger and disappear. Remember, The ledger is the key. If it's lost, all our efforts are meaningless. Minutes later, chaos erupted outside. Sam stepped into the street, shouting and firing a few warning shots into the air. The two men from the sedan scattered, momentarily confused. Inside, Eleanor and Thomas packed the ledger into a waterproof satchel. Each movement was precise, each sound amplified in the tense silence of the safe house. "We can't go back to the city," Eleanor said. "They'll know our patterns, our routes. We need a place off the grid, somewhere they won't expect." Thomas nodded. "I know a contact upstate, remote cabin, minimal connections. They'll have a hard time tracking us there." NNTHE journey north was tense, with eyes constantly scanning the rear-view mirror and every side street. The weight of the ledger pressed on both of them, not just physically, but emotionally. They were carrying decades of secrets, threats, and unfinished business. NNBY, the time they arrived at the secluded cabin, night had fallen. Snow began to fall lightly, muffling the sounds of the forest and providing a rare sense of relief. For a moment, Eleanor allowed herself to breathe, the cold air stinging her lungs. Thomas laid the ledger on the cabin table. "We made it for now. But we can't let our guard down. They're still out there and they'll come." And Sam, standing outside keeping watch, radioed back. "They'll be back. And when they return, it won't be a warning this time." In the darkness, a figure stepped silently through the trees, eyes fixed on the cabin. Clutched in one hand, a silenced pistol. In the other, a new ledger, identical to the one Eleanor held. "Time to settle the score," the figure whispered. "When the past catches up, even isolation offers no safety." NNTHE snow fell heavily now, blanketing the forest around the cabin in quiet white. Inside, Eleanor and Thomas pored over the ledger, trying to decipher names, dates, and cryptic notes. Sam kept a vigilant watch outside, his eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of movement, and Thomas whispered, "Every line in this ledger, it's a life someone has protected or destroyed. Whoever is coming for us knows it's priceless." Eleanor nodded, glancing at the pages. "They won't just want it. They'll come for revenge. For decades, they've been waiting for this moment." NNTHE sound of snapping branches reached Sam's ears first. He froze, crouching low. From the shadows, a figure emerged, moving silently toward the cabin. The moonlight glinted off the barrel of a silenced pistol. "Inside now?" Sam shouted through the window. Eleanor and Thomas moved quickly, barricading the doors as the figure approached. NNTHE intruder paused outside, scanning the cabin, then tossed a small device into the snow, a tracker. Sam rushed out to intercept, tackling the man to the ground. A struggle ensued, brief but violent, and the device skittered across the snow. And inside, Eleanor clutched the ledger. "They know exactly where we are," she whispered, panic rising in her chest. Thomas tried to calm her. "We're not done yet. We have the information. We can use it against them." NNTHE snowstorm intensified, wind howling through the trees, masking footsteps. More figures emerged, shadowy forms blending with the darkness. They moved with purpose, aware of the cabin's vulnerabilities. And Sam radioed for a backup plan. "We need to leave, now. They're surrounding us." Eleanor grabbed the satchel, zipping it tight. Thomas led her toward a hidden path behind the cabin. Snow muffled their footsteps as they moved quickly, but the shadows in the forest were relentless, closing in with a terrifying precision. One of the attackers fired a single shot, narrowly missing, the bullet lodging in the cabin wall. Sam returned fire, buying precious seconds. In the middle of the snow-covered path, Eleanor tripped, and the satchel flew open, spilling the ledger. One of the figures stepped forward, reaching down, and whispered, "At last we have you. Some truths are worth dying for, and some secrets demand the ultimate reckoning." Eleanor's heart raced as the shadowy figure loomed over the fallen ledger. Thomas dove forward, shoving the attacker aside and scrambling to gather the scattered pages. Snow stuck to his gloves as he desperately tried to secure the fragile papers. "Nen, keep moving," Eleanor shouted, grabbing Thomas's arm. Behind them, Sam fired warning shots, keeping the surrounding figures at bay. The attackers hesitated, their movements precise but cautious. They had been trained for this. Once they were a safe distance down the narrow forest path, Eleanor finally allowed herself to breathe. She unzipped the satchel and spread the pages across a fallen log, illuminated by the weak light of Sam's flashlight. "And every ledger entry, every name," she said, tracing her finger over the faded ink. "It's not just money. It's proof of complicity. Marlowe Sons, the underground networks, even some city officials, this ledger exposes them all." Thomas's eyes widened. "This is bigger than we imagined. If the wrong people get this, they'll kill us." Eleanor finished for him, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Then Sam stepped closer, lowering his flashlight. "We need to get this to the authorities, but carefully. One wrong move and decades of secrecy will explode into chaos." An NTHE snowstorm howled, carrying with it a sense of urgency. Thomas carefully photographed each page with a portable camera, while Eleanor and Sam discussed the plan. They needed to secure evidence with backup, but trust was a rare commodity. Anyone could be working for the people who had been protecting the ledger for decades. Suddenly, movement in the shadows caught their attention. A lone figure approached slowly, hands raised. The trio tensed, weapons ready, until the man spoke in a calm, familiar voice. "Eleanor Hartley?" NSHE froze. Recognition hit her. It was her long-lost cousin Vincent Hartley, thought dead years ago. "Vincent?" she whispered. NNHE nodded. "I've been watching over the ledger from the shadows. Your family's secrets, they almost destroyed me too. But now we can finally end this, together." NTHE tension lifted slightly, but the stakes remained high. With Vincent's help, Eleanor and Thomas could secure the ledger, but the enemies they had faced for decades were still out there, waiting for the next misstep. From a ridge above, another figure observed them silently, holding a pistol trained on the group. A single thought crossed his mind: the ledger has resurfaced, and now no one is safe. Some debts demand closure, and confronting the past can be deadly. NNTHE's snow-covered forest was silent except for the crunch of footsteps and the distant howl of wind. Eleanor Hartley, Thomas Carver, Sam Donovan, and Vincent Hartley huddled together, the ledger secured in a waterproof satchel. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle a threat, and Thomas whispered, "They're out there. They've been waiting decades for this ledger, and now it's in our hands." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "Then we end it. Tonight. No more running." From the ridge above, the final attacker revealed himself, a man with cold, unflinching eyes, trained and precise. He raised his weapon, signaling the beginning of the last confrontation. And Sam gritted his teeth. "Move fast. Take cover and force him into the open. We can't let him control the engagement." NNTHE group scattered behind snow-laden trees. Shots rang out, echoing through the forest, each one measured, deadly. The attacker's skill was evident. He predicted their movements, forcing them to constantly adapt. Eleanor's heart pounded, but she stayed focused. Thomas, Vincent, now. Circle left. They flanked him, using the terrain to their advantage. The man fired again, missing narrowly. Sam emerged from the shadows, striking him with a solid blow, sending him sprawling into the snow. Breathing heavily, Eleanor approached, holding the ledger aloft. "This ends now. You can't control it anymore. These secrets are ours to reveal, or they're meaningless to you." NNTHE man struggled to rise but saw the determination in her eyes. He realized the fight had shifted. He was no longer the hunter. Finally, he withdrew, disappearing into the trees, leaving behind silence and the threat of exposure. Eleanor exhaled, clutching the ledger. "It's over for now." Thomas nodded, still catching his breath. "We need to get this into the right hands. The authorities, the press, whoever can finally ensure it's safe." Then Vincent placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your family's name can finally be cleared. The debt, the secrets, they're no longer chained to you." NNTHE's snowstorm subsided as dawn broke over the forest, light spilling across the landscape like a promise. The ledger, once a symbol of fear and danger, now represented truth, justice, and a hard-won victory. Eleanor Hartley and Thomas Carver returned to the city with the ledger, prepared to expose decades of corruption. The Hartley family legacy, once haunted by disappearance, debt, and revenge, was finally confronted. Though shadows of the past lingered, the reckoning had begun, and the power of truth was restored. NTHE's snow had melted. The forest quieted, but the lessons endured. Some debts must be faced, some secrets must be revealed, and courage can survive even the longest winters. Some secrets demand a reckoning, and facing them can be deadly. Eleanor Hartley's small apartment became a battleground of tension. Thomas Carver's heart pounded as he scanned the room for anything that could be used as a weapon. The intruder, tall and imposing, stepped closer, his gun steady, eyes calculating. "You don't understand," Thomas said, trying to reason. "This ledger, it's proof. It can stop them, end the threats, and reveal everything. If you take it, the consequences will be worse." NNTHE man smirked. "I understand perfectly. And you misunderstand one thing. Proof doesn't matter, loyalty does. And the Hartley bloodline owes what was promised decades ago." Eleanor's hands shook, but her voice remained firm. "We owe nothing to your family. Your debts, your vendettas, these are yours to carry, not mine. The ledger is mine, and I will expose the truth." NNTHE intruder's expression darkened. He raised the gun, but before he could fire, a sudden crash sounded at the window. Thomas instinctively ducked, and Eleanor lunged to grab the gun as it discharged, sending a bullet into the wall. A struggle ensued, chaotic and dangerous. Thomas grabbed a heavy lamp and swung at the intruder, striking him just enough to stagger him backward. Eleanor's determination shone in her eyes, her fear transforming into resolve. "This ends now," she shouted. NNTHE intruder recovered, but the sound of sirens approached in the distance. The man cursed, realizing he was running out of time. He grabbed a folder from a nearby shelf, the ledger, but in the scuffle, it tore, pages scattering across the floor. Thomas dove to collect them, holding them close to his chest. Eleanor kicked the intruder toward the doorway, forcing him into a hallway lined with shadows. He vanished into the night, leaving the two of them surrounded by strewn papers, the winter wind rattling the windows. "Panting?" Eleanor turned to Thomas. "You understand now. These papers, they hold lives, families, and centuries of secrets. That man was just one of many who would kill for them, and now we're in their sights." Thomas nodded, the weight of the ledger pressing on him as heavily as the responsibility. "We need a plan. Whoever is behind this won't stop until every page is back in their hands." NNTHE room was silent for a moment, save for the sound of their breathing and the distant wail of sirens. The ledger was safe, for now, but Thomas knew that safety was temporary. The shadows waiting outside were patient and relentless. Outside, in the darkness, a car idled silently. A man stepped out, observing the building. He lifted a phone, speaking softly. "They've found it. Prepare the next phase. Nothing will stop the Hartley legacy from being claimed."